good day. Usually we meet on Saturday morning, but I think we turn the clock um, faster by half a day by going through um, going to meet on the Friday night, 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock, because now adapting to a master's schedule, the tour around Taiwan, and um, so that's why we're meeting here. Now we're in Taipei, and we had just gone through the first full day of master's schedule. And I need to, first of all, tell everybody the good news that master is doing great. Everything that we've seen are all very encouraging. All the signs are very encouraging that masters not only seems to be, I don't want to say completely, but very much vitalized, and also having this, a little skip in her steps, and also the way she talks, and obviously I can see that she's conserving her energy, but on the other hand, she's joking with all of us and having a really good time, and being very happy. So I think this is all very good signs, and that is why I wanted to keep everybody up to date, even though I need to tell you the truth, I'm so tired. Yesterday we got here, even though there wasn't any schedule. It was just a train ride, going to the first stop, and then coming here at the final stop, and then resting for the night. But there were many things, many meetings, many things to make sure that we take care of. And then today is a complete full day. And even that, Master was having some important meetings indoors in the meeting room, not coming out to meet everybody. But there were many things happening. So I can only say that today is very good sign. And the second day, the first full day, but the second day of a 32-day schedule. So we are, about 3% or 4% in our schedule, and it's got a long way to go. Anyway, and first of all, let me thank everybody to accommodate on this schedule, because in our normal time, tomorrow 7 o'clock, just to give you a taste of what's going to happen, tomorrow by 7 o'clock in the morning, we will already have the municipal government from New Taipei to be here, and they will be coming here to listen to us talking about what we've been doing recently. And I think that's why the normal times wouldn't work. That is why we're seeing time that are being shifted either to nights, evenings, or early in the morning, and that's what's been happening. So that's why. Thanks to everybody to accommodate this crazy schedule. Okay, so now without further ado, let's move on to today's topic. I hastily put this together because I wanted to use today's content, and I wanted to have an opportunity to go in a little bit deeper while going through some of the questions that you have posed, and that's something I want to get to for the 30 minutes that we have today. Okay, so let me get through that. This week, what we're going to talk about is use it or lose it. And the reason why I particularly use this is because today there is we have a segment that we have many elders, many very experienced, many volunteers that have been with Tzu Chi for 30 years and more. They came back and they shared with Master. And if you have been following today, we actually have the YouTube link so that everybody can actually follow Master's footsteps. You would actually listen to this part. Now, Master said, always remembering that year, remembering that person, and remembering that event. There are many ancient memories. Once you stimulate your memories, the endless memory will be conjured up, and our brain power is truly endless. So what Master is saying is that what we have known all along, yet we fail to do. Master says that the memory is like, it's like a box. When you don't use it, it's just box. There are many things inside, but you only see this box. But as you begin to open or take apart this box, things begin to come out that you didn't know you had, or you've forgotten that you actually have. That's this endless memory we're talking about. And Master equate that to our brain power. And so Master continues to say, really, we're not afraid to overuse our brains. Instead, what we fear the most is not using our brains enough, especially now that most of the disciples have all aged and we have slowed down in our minds. So we need to use more as we gain on age. So Master is telling us that our brain is something that we need to use more. You either use it or you lose it. And it's like memory. The more you remember, the more you try to overclock it, the more that you try to remember it and stimulate that memory, the more that your brain power or your minds and your memory gets more alive. And that actually goes on. That is true for many, many things. It's not just our memory. Look at our compassion, right? Perhaps at first, we weren't always like this. At first, we would be okay just by donating money. But now we're different. It's not enough to just donate money. Now it's something that we have to actually do. We have to actually see. And we look so much further into the future to see how we can help everybody. So it's no longer, it grows. It takes a life of its own, right? So that's what I found it too fascinating, because this actually equates with so many things, not just memory, our compassion, our abilities to speak. The more you speak, the more you think, the more you remember, the more you love. And also goes true for hatred, for fear, for all the things that's negative. So it's the same thing. It's this thing that we need to always remember. It's to use it or lose it. The next thing you need to do is to find the right things to do, right things to think. So I really think that it's something that we need to think about, is that why is Master always wanting us to not forget, always to remember? Why? Because it's important that we remember these very fondest of the memories where we show and we did and we outdid ourselves in showing compassion. That is very, very important. We're not afraid to over compassionate, but we're afraid of is not being compassionate enough. That's what Master is telling us. Okay, so do not be afraid to overuse our brains or our bodies to do these things. What we're afraid of is instead not using it enough. That is why, and I have all of you to thank for, because you've all agreed to change your time. And I think later on we're going to hear our brother from Melbourne, and the time there is truly late, and it could very well, the brother could fall asleep or doze off while sharing, and I could totally understand that. But I think that's exactly what's on my mind too. It is easy. It is easy for us all to just say, you know what, it's difficult, let's not do this. But then the more that we think about it, the more that we try to stimulate, to make the best use of our time. You live it so that even though you have only one day, but you live it to the fullest, as if there were 3 days in that, jamming into that 1 day time frame. That is how we should not be afraid to overuse our time, but rather not using it enough. Okay, so use it more to make it more useful. Isn't it true? Same thing is true with our brain. Same thing is true with our mind. Same thing is true with our time. Same thing is true with our brain. Same thing is true with everything. And that is why Master wants us to be using it more, always using it more. And that goes the same way with this very next story that Master shared with us. I didn't have a chance to the story that Master shared with us today. Master said that, I'm sure all of you have heard this, that there was this commissioner who took a long way only there were only taxi that were available in the morning. And so this commissioner took the taxi, which cost her 200 NT at the time, to go to another place just to collect 20 NT donation. And so when Master heard of this, Master was like, so why do you do this? Right? And then Master today told us that in her heart, in her mind, she was really happy. She actually admitted and agreed that this is good and this is good. But she asked the question nonetheless. But is it worth it that you spend 200 going there only to get 20? And so does that make sense? It doesn't make any sense. But Master in her heart, she actually believed that this is the right thing to do, but she asked this question anyway. So the commissioner answered Master that, Master, but you didn't know. I took one trip there, even though I collected this 20 NT, but I spent the rest of the time sharing with this person the stories of Tzu Chi. And then he is going to share with other people, and then they're going to share with more people. And therefore, what I really gain isn't just 20. I'm building more up, and eventually it will be more and more people. Now, it sounds like an investment scheme, but it's not. It's actually use it or make it more useful. You keep on doing this. You don't look at what you put in, but you look at what you're trying to stimulate. You're trying to get that compassion in. That's why Master said it's not the amount that really gets her. The whole point is to get more people and to get more compassionate heart and compassion to try to do this. So while it is true, and Master also said this, right? She also said that it is important to raise the money. It is very important. However, it's the mind, it's the heart that is also very, very with the utmost importance. Okay, so that goes with this. So last thing I wanted to share about was on November 2nd. Master talks about why she began to give this Dharma talk on the Lotus Sutra. She said that not many people is willing, not many people dare to openly spoke of the Lotus Sutra, because as soon as the sutra is preached, things will begin to happen. What things? Like destruction, the unbalance of the elements. These things begin to happen. But Master said, turn it around. Master said, but precisely because these things began to happen, precisely because all these things are happening now that the Lotus Sutra is now expounded, we need to, through Lotus Sutra, gather all the Bodhisattva spirits together. Now is the time. It is the time for us to come together and to pave the road and to walk the path. And that is what Master told us. And this is the time, even though it is so much turbulence, even though there's so much problems and challenges in our lives. But the most important thing is, now that the Lotus Sutra is now being expounded, the next thing to do is that it's going to pull together the spirits of the Bodhisattva so that we can now shoulder this experience. We can now shoulder this responsibility. And this goes in the same line as use it or lose it. This is the time to work our compassion. This is the time to work our wisdom. This is the time to put it into practice, because no longer is it okay enough to just talk about it. Now is the time to really put into action, because you are forced to do this. Your back is against the wall. There isn't any other room for you to just talk about this. You've got to do something. Before, you're okay with just talking about it, preaching about it. But now you've got to do something about it. And that's the major difference, because things are beginning to happen. You're talking about the Bodhisattva path. You've got to do something about it. You can't just talk about it anymore. It's not just academia. Things are happening around. You should do something to help others. And that's very simple. So now our backs against the wall. This is the time when everything began to happen. We need to come together as well. Okay, so very quickly. So these are the very few things that I put together. I apologize for things that are not being really overly well polished. But I was earlier. I was just feeling so tired at around 6 o'clock when finally every day, the whole day, sort of the schedule ends and we have other meetings going on. So I had my other meeting talking about other stuff ended around 7 o'clock. Then I had some time to sit down and doze off a little bit, and then begin to go through the notes on the very important parts that I thought I want to share today. So I apologize that the PPT itself wasn't really well polished, but there are two things that I wanted to strike home today. One, use it or lose it. Remembering that day, remembering that event, remembering that people, because those are events and memories that are worthy of our memory, that are the importance that brings out the best in all of us. That's why the more we remember, the more we stimulate this part of our brain, this part of our memory, so that we can remember more fond memories of how that happened, which will help us carry us through to have more propensity to do all these things. Next thing that we talked about is that the Lotus Sutra. It is a time that talks about the imbalance, the turbulence that happens all over the world. But precisely, it is because of all the things that's happening is even more so the reason why we need to come together and raise the spirit of the Bodhisattva. That's what we need to do. So this is the time, the perfect time for the Lotus Sutra and the time to gather our spirit together. Okay, so that's the two key points. Now let's go into the questions. So this is the question that I really appreciate everybody always taking the time to write down. And even though I do not know the backgrounds much, but I do want to share that that I can try to fathom what is the whole point. So during selling of goods for donation drive, the prices are marked higher to get more money for charity effort. And after all, these are donated goods, right? So something that costs $5, you can market to be 200, right? And that usually is what happens. And people are happily still buying it because they realize that this is all for a good cause. Okay, but the person asks, is this the right way? Some buyers complain that Tzu Chi goods are too expensive for people to afford. I try to advise volunteers, but as new volunteer, I seem to have challenge. Can you please help guide the best way to do this? So there are a couple of things that I wanted to bring out here. First, what is the right price, or even is there a right price? You could think that a right price is something that the buyer and the seller will be agree and happy to pay for and agree to part, at the right price. So what is the right price, and what exactly are we selling? Right? It's a donation drive. So what is the right price? And I would think that the right price is the price where the buyer is happy and the seller is happy. Okay, that to me is the right price. That to me, nobody is getting ripped off. Nobody is getting any bad deals out of this, right? So the buyer gets what they wanted out of this good, and the seller gets what he wanted out of this price. It's a happy transaction. It's an equal trade. Nobody gets, nixed in whatever way, right? So to me, that is the right price. Now coming back to the Tzu Chi donation drive, in my mind, as long as whoever that was paying for this particular thing is happy about paying for this particular thing, and whoever is selling it is happy about parting this thing to get this donation, then I think it serves its purpose. Most importantly, it is actually for a good cause. But I wanted to take a little bit one step deeper. What is the right price? More importantly, do they know what they're buying? Do they know what they're buying? Are you buying this particular thing? What are you buying? You're paying $50 for something that's worth only 10. Do you know what you're buying, or do you know what you're spending on? If you truly know, then the fact that you're willing to do this means that you agree that it's the right price. I am speaking on very technical terms. There's not much Dharma in what I'm saying right now, because it's all about how we feel in our heart. Why do you think it's too high? Why do you think it's too expensive? Because obviously you think that the merchandise that you're getting isn't worth the price that you're paying for. That is why you think it's too much. And that is why you think that, that's why you're thinking you're paying too much. But the most important thing is we must do something that we ourselves feel is worthy. We shouldn't force other people to do something that they don't want to do. So it's not about. So Master always says, right? Even today, she talks about that. That is why she said only 5 cents a day. It's not about the price. It's not about the price. It's not about the 20 NTs that you get, but you put in 200 to get it, right? So you ask that person, the person that paid 200 thinks that I am getting such a great deal because I got one person, his devotion of 20 NT. But if you look at the monetary values, it's not the same. But to the person that paid for it, do they know what they're paying for? Yes, they do. They know that they're through 200. They're paying for an opportunity to inspire someone, and perhaps from 1 to infinity. Okay, so that is why I think sometimes, and Master is so right about this, it's all about psychology, right? Master recently said that for the people that are poor, it's actually easy for them to donate because they don't have much. Okay, so it's easy for them. If you have 100, it's okay for you to donate 5 or 10. But if you have 1,000,000, it's hard for you to donate 10,000 or 20,000 or 50,000. It's hard. So what is the difference? So Master said, if you don't have much, it's actually easy for you to give because it's not much. But if you have a lot, give the same proportion will be too much. So you don't give. However, the true amount that you want to give seems too little compared to how much you have. And that loses face. So the best thing to do is to not give. Isn't this just all about psychology? It is. So Master always tells us what is the true value? What is the right price? Is there a right price? That's what you must ask yourself. That's what you must ask yourself. And I think the whole thing isn't about how much is it worth or how expensive it is. I think the most important thing is, do we know what we're doing? Do we know what we're buying? Do we know what we're raising? Do we know what we're trying to do? I think donation drives, as Master once told us, it's still a transaction. You're getting something out of your donation. And by that, it's a little bit different than if you were, say, putting into the bamboo bank, because you're getting nothing. Most of the thing you're getting back, it's not concrete material. But in the donation drive, you're actually getting, for example, you're getting, 粽子. Okay, you're getting something back. You just pay more for it. So in a way, Master once said that donation drive is actually, it's not the perfect way. It's not bad, but it's not perfect because there is still something there that incites your greed, because now you get to have something. You get to buy something. Now, you can go in deeper into thinking about what it actually means. Let's not do this, okay? Because I think it takes more time to think calmly. Okay, do not just, be all in arms and say, do you mean to say that this is bad? No, I don't mean that. But comparatively, we could do different things, okay? So coming back to this, donation drives, we must remember, what are we trying to achieve? We're trying to achieve is to try to inspire. It's a provincial way. It's a way to inspire others by dangling something that people like and say, oh, when you do this, you get this. And isn't that just what the allegory of the burning house, the parable of the burning house is? Yes. You're telling the children that I have 3 cards on the outside. It's exactly the same thing. So the donation drive is the same thing. Okay, so do not be troubled by looking at the values, but rather thinking past that and think about what we're trying to sell, what we're trying to do with all this donation drive. Okay, so last question. Let me see. Okay, I'm gonna skip this question because it's okay. I'm gonna go to this question. Okay, what does master mean by this paragraph? Did the wood? Okay, so this part. Okay, take burning wood as an example. Did the wood ignite the fire, or did the fire ignite the wood? It is hard to draw a distinction because they are ultimately of the same essence. Okay, so the person asks, and thank you for asking, what does that mean? What does it mean by this passage? And especially this particular sentence, they are ultimately of the same essence. Same how? One is fire, one is wood. One is being burned, one is burning. So how can they have the same essence? And the way I understand it is they have the same essence because they all follow the same rules. By itself, it does not work. By the wood itself, it does not work. It doesn't burn. By the fire itself, it cannot prolong. It cannot persist. It cannot persist because it has nothing to burn. The same essence is that it follows the same rules. You need to have all the factors coming together. All like the causes and the conditions have to bind together for anything to happen. They follow the same rules. You can have all the wood in the world and there will be no fire. You can have all the fire in the world, but it will just go out because there's no wood to burn. Same thing. They all needed others to accomplish what they ultimately need to be accomplished. That's their same essence. So do we. We all have the power to complete something. We all have the power to do something, but we first need the others to make it possible. That is why opening the path and also paving the road is very important because we are all part of the fire. We need the wood to keep it going. And the path is precisely that. So even though we all come from different backgrounds, even though we're all expert in different things, or we like to do different things, but we all share the same essence because we follow the same rules. We want to do something. We are motivated to do something, but we don't have that something to do. So Master opened this path for us to help, connecting us to the people that need help. And now we have the opportunity to help others. Now the wood and the fire come together. The cause and condition come together. Now something is happening, and it's called the Bodhisattva path. Okay, so that's what I wanted to answer this question. And look at the time. It really goes by really quickly. I felt like I barely started talking, but 30 minutes always goes by so fast. I'm still trying to find a balance of time to eat, time to rest, time to have meetings, and time to have online sessions. So please do forgive me, and there probably will be 3 or 4 other opportunities that will be online again. But regardless, I think I really appreciate all of your accommodating on the schedule, and I'll definitely share more on the newest things that's happening on the tour, on the trip for Master around Taiwan. And tomorrow will be the very, very first, the year-end celebration ceremony for the hospital. And then beginning tomorrow and going on, it will be almost at least 1 ceremony every day. And it will not be easy. But I think this is what Master wouldn't want to miss out on any of this. And that is our Master. would not want to miss out on any of this, even though she herself might not have the physical um, uh, uh, energy to continue, but her mental prowess is carrying her physical body through to its completion. So today is the second day out of 32-day schedule. We're hoping every day she gets stronger and every day she gets more energetic and continue to lead us forward. Thank you, everybody. And that's my sharing for today. Thank you.
And Brother Joe, for such wonderful insights, and we are very grateful. Brother Joe, you are so selfless, please, in fact, we all feel so unbearable. We know the schedule is punishing, and so we pray that Master will lead us, continue to lead us. Yes, life after life. Today, very grateful also, aside from Brother Joe, also Brother Wayne. It's midnight at his place, and yet Brother Wayne, yeah, indeed, is using it more to make it more useful. That is what Brother Wayne is doing tonight. So instead of sleeping time, he's benefiting global participant. We look forward to this sharing on the forest fire in Victoria. Okay, over to you, Brother Wayne. Good
evening, everybody. How are you? I'm Wayne Cockrell from Melbourne, Victoria, and we're just coming up to close to midnight, so I'll try to keep my eyes open for the whole presentation. The presentation I've told tonight is called Persistence and Perseverance, Patience, Persistence and Perspiration make an unbeatable combination for success. Basically, the reason why I've called it that is because when we first started dealing with our bushfires back in 2019, it was Tzu Chi Victoria's first effort into doing something on a larger scale. And we did find at the beginning that things were very, very difficult for us to be introduced to the community. So going forward, what we tried to do is to make sure that we could meet the local authorities and things like that. We'd sort of gone to a few meetings with councils, and we'd sort of gone to recovery centres, but things just didn't seem to work out too well for us because people didn't know who Tzu Chi was, but they did understand all the other agencies like the Red Cross and the Salvation Army and the Brotherhood of St. Lawrence and everything. They're very well recognised here in Australia. Tzu Chi was sort of like an anomaly to them. And I think one of the things that sort of amazed most people is that we turned up in our uniforms and we just looked so clean and neat, where all the other charities were just in their wind cheaters or their T-shirts and things like that. We sort of, as I said here, we were the new kid on the block. It took us a bit of time because people, I think they just didn't really trust us at the start. So what we had to try and do is just to keep persisting all the time and do as much as what we possibly could. We eventually arranged a meeting with the local council up in the Bunyip and Tonic Brook area. And we thought that that might have been our opportunity to get more involved within the community, but regrettably, it didn't work out the way that we expected. The council basically said to us, you can donate your money to the council, and what we'll do is we'll hand it out. But Tzu Chi's method is more to deal personally with the people. And that created a bit of a problem for us because we just wasn't sort of getting the information that we needed. So eventually we went to a recovery centre up in the Tonic Brook area, and we introduced ourselves to the charities right in the middle of the bushfire area. We sort of introduced ourselves in such a way to let them know that we were here to help and we want to do as much as we possibly could. So we started to share a little bit of information with the other charities, and thankfully they gave us some information as well. So what we did is we picked a number of particular houses that have been destroyed. We got in touch with them and we actually made appointments with them. The difference between the Tzu Chi approach and the other charitable approaches was that most of the other charities just turned up on the front door, and it intimidated the residents quite a bit. You know, you can imagine they've just been through bushfires and everything, they've lost their homes, and all of a sudden you've got this wad of people walking in their driveway, which they don't even know. So the reason why we made the appointments is because we wanted people to know that we were here to help them, but we didn't just want to turn up unannounced. So over the next, most probably 2 to 3 weeks, we had a quite an incredible time. And the very, very first person we met was a person by the name of Rex Newton. And he's known in the area for collecting animals, and anyone that had an animal that was sort of hurt or something like that would drop it off at Rex's house. We introduced ourselves to Rex on the day, very nice gentleman. And we had a look at his home and everything. And he was the first person that we actually gave our small cash donation just to help him out if he needed to sort of buy some food or just even some food for his animals. And from then on, Rex was quite good because he spread our name around a little bit. And I think our approach really pleased him. So from then on, we sort of, we got in touch with 2 other couples, which was David and Sue McMahon. They had a beautiful bed and breakfast establishment on a hill. The fire came through and totally destroyed their house, and just, there was nothing left. And you can imagine that, you know, when you lose your home and your income and everything like that, it's quite just stressing for them. But again, I think our approach was more compassionate than the other type of charities, because we wanted to just sit down and have a little bit of a talk. We eventually had a talk with Dave, because his wife Sue was quite stressed and she just couldn't deal with it at the time. From then on, we went and met Karen Shift, another beautiful lady whose house was totally destroyed up into the mountains. And the last person we sort of dealt for before we got into all the people was a gentleman by the name of Alan O'Dart, who had a beautiful house on top of a hill, but his house got totally destroyed as well. So we realised that the importance in helping others and the building of stronger social connections to friends of the community. We just didn't want to go in as being a charity here to give money, but we wanted to make those social interactions with people. We wanted them to know that we really cared about them, and we were here to sort of do everything we possibly could to help them out going forward. I've just put some small pictures in here so that you can have a look and see exactly what the damage was like. This is Rex Newton's place. I suppose if you look right at the very, very front of that clip, you'll see an emu sitting right in the middle of the screen. This is actually Rex's pet, and he was, or I think she's a she. She was one of the animals that did survive, but he did lose a lot of birds and ducks and everything like that. Now this gentleman, he's what, 78 years of age, and he spent 8 months living in a small shed with his 3 dogs, even in the middle of winter. And as much as we tried to sort of get up there and help him out all the time, he spent most of his time going to the recovery centre and helping out the rest of the residents. And this is most probably one of the things that really impressed myself, because these people were really there to help each other, and the community gelled together quite brilliantly. This is Rex out the front after we met him the very, very first day, having a bit of a chat, and you can see one of the dogs that slept with him for that 8 months in the shed. Now, the next people that we went to see was Sue and David McMahon, and this is all that was left after their bed and breakfast was totally destroyed. At the back of this property, there was a beautiful pool, but that had to be totally dug up and taken away as well, because the heat was so intense that it actually cracked the cement into the pool. So it made it very, very hard to do anything with it. So that cost them a lot of money as well. Here we are now, having a bit of a chat to David and everything, and that's May Sugu. And we sort of, again, we used our compassionate approach to these people to just make them feel comfortable. We weren't there to hassle them, and we weren't there to give them any drama. We just wanted to let them know that whatever they needed, we would try and do what we possibly could for them. This is Karen Shift. This lady, she totally lost everything. All the memories that she had, totally lost. I mean, the only thing that we found on the ground was a couple of dollars in change. She was very, very stressed, but this lady again was most probably one of those ladies that we can say gave Tzu Chi a very good sort of reputation. She went back to the recovery centre, and she did tell the other charities that our organisation was out there and ready to help. And in a way, that was quite good, because it made the other charities realise that we were there for one purpose, and that was to just make sure that the community had people that they could rely upon. This is actually the result of Karen's house being totally destroyed. So as you can see, The bushfires were quite intense in the area at the time. This one here is Mr. Alan O'Dart. Alan's property was totally destroyed. He lost all his birds, all his aviaries. And the sad thing about this house is that Alan had only just finished doing a quite extensive refurbishment inside his home. And to see something like this just broke his heart. So again, it was a hard process to go through, but at every avenue, we were there to make sure that we did everything we possibly can. And as the success is the sum of small efforts repeated day in and day out. We only found out after about 2 weeks that Tzu Chi was provided with a desk at the recovery centre, but we weren't actually told about it. But we found that we went up there nearly every day and we met with all the other charities and we shared our information. They shared their information with us. And eventually the local council recognised Tzu Chi's efforts and they made very, very close friendships with us. And these close friendships established a trust between us. And what we tried to do as much as possible, we visited as many properties as we could. And over the period of around about almost probably 4 to 5 weeks, we visited most probably close to 40 different properties. One of the things that was interesting is that everybody seemed to accept us quite willingly. We had no drama with anybody. And the people were very pleased of our approach. We just walked in, I suppose being a hugging sort of people, but we gave them hugs and we just made them feel very, very comfortable. Once we'd sort of finished doing the most of the home visits, we then started to do the planning for our first cash distribution. And when we went to the recovery centre, the people were having a lot of trouble saying Tzu Chi. So the gentleman that I introduced you to before, Rex Newton, he decided to call us the Penguins because we're in our white pants and our blue shirts. And he said that that's what we really look like, but you always look neat and clean. And some people actually called us Tzu Chi because they really couldn't recognise our name straight away. The next picture I'm going to show you was that this hall at the top on the top right hand, that's the recovery centre where all the residents come for their community lunches. We decided that as part of our introduction of ourselves into the community, we would involve ourselves in the community lunches as well, because we felt that if we did that sort of thing, that they would see us there all the time. And we are so highly recognised in our uniforms. And as you can see on that top right-hand corner, you can see the 3 Tzu Chi representatives there by our white pants and our blue tops. The lady down the bottom, she's just another one of those ladies that we were trying to help out. And we met a lot of the people at the recovery centre so we could just do what we possibly could for them. Look, just 1 second. I've got another screen coming up here. Okay, so my quote here was that no one has ever become poor by giving. Giving with compassion and providing relief with first cash distribution. So what we had to do, it took a lot of organisation. This was Tzu Chi's first real effort into dealing with such a, I suppose you can say, a huge, dramatic disaster that occurred in Melbourne. So the first thing we had to do was to try and organise a venue. This was quite interesting because we were contacted by, well, we did contact a few people, and the council said, yes, we can have a venue, but they wanted us to pay for that venue. And our comment basically was that, look, we're very happy that you offer us that venue, but the money that we collect is from our members and from our volunteers. And we don't really feel that it's appropriate for us to be paying out money for the venue. So eventually, one of the people gave us access to I think it was actually the Bunyip Football Club, and they gave us that for nothing, which was fantastic. So once we knew that we had an organised venue, then we had to rally our volunteers together and get all the tasks done. And that turned out to be quite a massive job because, we had to organise hands on deck, cars to be organised, equipment. We had to set up the venue, food and drink had to be organised, a program had to be designed. And we had to use our volunteers to allocate for record keeping and video production. And part of that just meant that the whole day had to be fully well planned before we can get in there, because being our first aspect of dealing with such a disaster, we wanted to make sure that we did it properly and that we could actually do it successfully. Because this was our first time dealing with such a major disaster, we really wanted to make sure that it went off really well. And as you can see from this next picture, this was our first cash card distribution. And we had a program that went on, and we did a presentation from the master. We had the master's letter there as well. And our young Tzu Chi put on a small show. And we just basically introduced Tzu Chi to the whole community. It turned out to be quite an emotional day because a lot of the residents who come there weren't really sure exactly how our presentation was going to go. Because most of the charities, they just give out their cards and they give out some vouchers, and that's about it. But Tzu Chi does it in such a compassionate way that we like to know that the people there see us as being involved in their life, not just to hand out the money, but there because we want to be there and because our purpose in life is to make sure that people are being assisted. The next screen that I've got here is actually everybody working very, very hard. And as you can see from the top left-hand corner, these are all the volunteers unloading all the cars and getting all the equipment inside. The picture on the right-hand side at the top is our Tzu Chi getting ready to do all the recording, do down the names, taking out all the information and identities of those people. And as you can see on the bottom left-hand corner, it became quite emotional for a lot of the residents when they came here. You can see one of the ladies there who's lying in the arms of her husband, and she's crying, and behind her is one of our volunteers comforting her. And the bottom right-hand corner is the presentation of our scarves to each one of the residents. And this is something that they were really quite surprised about, that we were involving them in our presentation. And they were really quite impressed with the way that we treated them all. Again, this is another part of that presentation on that day. And as you can see, all the Tzu Chi volunteers circled all the residents on the day, and we bowed to them to give thanks to them for allowing us to be involved in their lives and to help them out. It was an emotional day, I think, not only for the residents, but also for the Tzu Chi volunteers, because we did everything we possibly could to make them involved in our style, but also to let them know that we're helping them. And part of our program also was to say to them, look, we know that your properties have been damaged. We know there's going to be a lot of work to help out. So what we did after that, we started to organise working bees. And part of these working bees was sort of getting our volunteers together, chopping up wood, stacking wood for them. As you can see by this clip here, giving without expectations of getting something in return means giving more of yourself and giving with greater thought. Those Tzu Chi's community working bees, many friendships have established. And even now, we're sort of like 2 years past, and the people from the Tonimbuk and Bunyip area still send us messages thanking us for our generosity and for our ever-caring nature towards them. We just dropped into Rex's place the other day. His house has now been built, and he was just so excited to see us. So that picture there is just showing us working on the working bee and cleaning up the property. Another one of the gentlemen, he had an enormous amount of trees that were all burnt down. So we sort of got all our volunteers together, and we planted something like 300 to 400 trees in one morning. And the gentleman was so impressed that when he came back to the recovery centre during our lunchtime break, he came in and gave us quite a substantial monetary donation. And we said, look, we didn't do the work for money. He said, no, what you did today is one of the most amazing things I've ever seen. And again, we had another property where we went up and did more log splitting. It seemed to be one of the biggest things was the log splitting and stacking up of the wood. This one here is another picture where this is David and Sue McMahon's place. And we actually spent another day going up there because poor David, he was doing some renovations on part of the property, and he fell and broke his ankle. So he was unable to sort of clear up all the wood and everything down on his property. So he taught our girls to actually drive around in the tractors. And as you can see, there's the young lady up there on the left-hand side, and she was driving the tractors and collecting all the tin and collecting all the wood. And as you can see in the bottom right-hand corner, our other volunteers were stacking up the wood and getting ready. And most of that wood would be used for their winters, so we're doing everything we possibly can. This one here was one of our most possibly hardest volunteer days. we amassed something like around about 40 volunteers in the day, and this gentleman's fences were quite destroyed, and so he needed them to be painted. And when we first sort of realised what was going on, and we got there and we thought, oh my gosh, it's 3 pails of fence, but in the whole day, we painted 5 kilometres of fencing for him on that white colour. And as you can see, our volunteers were so well organised that they managed to get everything done on the same day. And again, this particular resident was so surprised by our efforts that she was amazed. Sorry, and here I am. Sorry that I look so dirty, but so much paint got splashed around on the day, but the happy faces enjoying working so hard. And you can just see that all our volunteers, no one was really begrudging the fact that, you know, we had to work so hard to do anything. They were just so happy that they could do something for one of the residents. As time went on, Tzu Chi became a very sort of focal point for the community. And we got involved in their morning teas that were held by the local councils. And this one in particular was a morning tea that was organised by the council for those volunteers and groups that had actually worked so hard to hand out the councils. The weekly dinners, we found that this was probably one of the most important ways to keep ourselves involved within the community. And as you can see, we've got one of our volunteers on the top left-hand corner sitting there. That's our Mei Sagu. And on the bottom one, that's myself talking to another one of the volunteers. And both these people, we helped them out quite substantially during the period. And we felt that if we involved ourselves in the weekly dinners and let the people know that we were still there, it would just enhance Tzu Chi's position within the community. Because by this time, we're talking here most probably 5 or so months after the bushfires had happened, we were still there every Wednesday night going for dinner. And we even prepared our own vegetarian meals and took it up there. And a lot of the residents were quite surprised at how good the vegetarian food tasted. And by the time both Mei Sagu and me went to get our meal, all the vegetarian food had gone, so we were just eating the salads. As you can see, this is another picture of the weekly dinners. And that's again Rex. And as you can see, the bottom right-hand corner, we're sitting around with a few of the other charity groups. With, I think, in a way, we found out that some of the charity groups kept coming because they knew that we were still there. And this is our big anniversary day. We'd sort of, we'd had our cash card distribution. We'd done, most probably by this time, 12 working bees. So we had a big meeting up at the recovery centre. And again, we decided that we'd be there. Again, we got called penguins because they weren't too sure exactly what was going on, but they were all very, very happy to see us. After around about 8 to 9 months, we decided to involve the community again by having a tea ceremony. We didn't think, or we most probably didn't realise that it would be held in such a way that the residents would be so involved, because when we announced that we were going to have a tea ceremony and, you know, to see if anybody wanted to come along, we thought maybe in a lot of cases that the people most probably thought, oh, we got the money and we've sort of had the cleanups and everything done, so maybe we don't need to expend any more time because you've done everything that you wanted to do. But the tea ceremony was something that was emotionally strengthening for them, because they all got together as a community again, and we all came down and we did our tea ceremony, and again, we involved them all incredibly. So making a tea ceremony such a success was a number of community residents who went out of their way to arrange a free charge for us in the venue and to present the community on the day. One of the ladies whose house wasn't destroyed but had a friend whose house was destroyed, she went out of her way to get in touch with a community member who allowed us to use their courts for the day and their hall. She was fantastic to give us that for free of charge, but again, we just made sure that before we left, everything was cleaned up properly, and she was so stunned by Tzu Chi's efforts to get everything totally clean. The next thing that we organised was a Christmas and New Year blessing ceremony, which was at the end of the year. This turned out to be quite successful. As you can see, our young Tzu Chi people down the bottom there, the young kids, they did a dance ceremony. And this went down beautifully because the residents were just so surprised to see all these young children come there and work so hard to share their day with them. And as you can see from the bottom right-hand corner, the residents were very, very keen to sort of have a bit of a chat to the young ones. And we sort of provided the food for them, all vegetarian food, beautifully all prepared and everything. And it was just a very wonderful day, and the residents were so thankful to us. This is another picture of the Christmas and New Year Eve blessing. The young gentleman there at the time, he was quite emotional at the time. He had a bit of a tear in his eye, and that's how Katie Segura there, she hugged one of the residents who was very sad. And we just tried to make them feel like they're never going to be alone and that we will always be here to help them. I noticed in the past with a lot of charities that once they did what they had to do, they tended to sort of leave, and that was about it. But we have been there now for nearly 2 years, and we are still getting messages, and we are still getting texts, and we still get emails. And when we put things on our Facebook and things like that, so many of their residents come back and just thank us for our caring nature and our compassionate nature and our ongoing support for them. And they've seen that we've been doing so much work during the COVID-19 cases as well, that every time we put our pictures on there, their comments to us are just so rewarding and so pleasing that we know that all that effort that we've put in over the last 2 years was well worth it. This is another picture of our Christmas and New Year's Eve blessing. And as you can see, quite a few people turned up, a lot of residents on the day. And again, we've got another picture here. This is we'd never done this before, and this was a special drum performance. And our volunteers practiced so hard for around about a month to get this right. And at the end of the day, when they finished their drum performance, so many of the residents had come up to me and said, I cannot believe that your volunteers worked so hard and it was just for us. I said, well, it's not just for you, it's for the whole community. And we're hoping that, you know, everyone that sees what we're doing here, they know that, you know, this is part of who Tzu Chi is. We do what we have to do to make the people feel welcome within their community. And if we can help them out, then that's all we have to do. And back, here we are again, back with Rex Newton and with a lady called Barbara Volker, who lost a few horses. And as you can see, when we had our first cash delivery, we handed out our bamboo banks, and bit by bit, the residents started to bring the bamboo banks back to us at the recovery centre. And it's very, very rewarding when you see that you don't tell the people that they have to bring the money back to us, but when they know that we're there, they do bring the money back. And it's an incredible thing that we've actually had that impact upon those people, and that they respect us so much that they put that money into that bank every day and wait for us to come back and give it to them. This is another picture of David and Sue. And as you can see, it took Sue quite a while to recover from the disaster of losing her bed and breakfast place and her home and everything. And that bottom left-hand side picture is of the one of poor David when he broke his ankle. And we had to push him around on the day so he could show us what to do. But he turned out to be one of our most valued residents, I think, because when we had our second cash card distribution, as you can see from the bottom right-hand corner, he gave a presentation on the day to the second group of residents during the bushfires that really, I suppose you can say, made Tzu Chi look like a blessed charity. And we were very, very thankful for that. Another lady that helped us out quite substantially was Dinah Jacob, and she was very, very strongly supporting of Tzu Chi all the way through. And that picture at the bottom right-hand corner, that is actually a current picture from the bushfires in the Malakuta and Bairnsdale area this year. And you can see at the back all the tents. All those tents are actually occupied by firefighters, and they rotate those people on night shifts and day shifts. And we wondered what we could actually do for them. And we thought, well, they're working so hard, we will make up these packs for them. It included, you know, toothbrushes and toothpaste and flannels and wet ones and soaps and things like that. So, and sort of like deodorants and sanitary papers, so they could sort of have something to refresh themselves up. And we spent nearly 6.5, 7 hours driving there and back to issue it to this recovery centre and firefighting area up on the Bunyip and up in the Bairnsdale area. And we received again a lot of very beautiful messages. And I've got a couple here that I thought you might be interested in. And some of the messages we received from the residents were, you stop, you guys never stop, you are so wonderful. Oh, you guys brought a tear to my eyes. Amazing. Thank you so much for filling the gap yet again. Safe and beautiful people. I am dumbfounded. You guys are the most giving and inspirational people I think I've ever met. So grateful to have met you both and understand what to do. Lots of love. It was wonderful watching the Channel 9 News and seeing the wonderful help your teams were providing. Getting onto the Channel 9 News was something that we weren't really sort of thinking about, but the news got in touch with us because one of the doctors from the hospitals mentioned that we were working very, very hard to make sure that the aged care homes and the hospitals were getting masks and face shields and gowns and things like that. So our hard work and our hard efforts and our compassionate approach towards the bushfires, it helped us become more community focused and it helped us become more community known. So even though we had those problems at the start and we had to persevere and we had the long perseverance and we had perspiration and we traveled literally, I think over most probably the 3 months before we did the first interview with Rex up until we had our second cash card distribution, the traveling by myself was close to 2,500 kilometers. And we did this basically every day up into the bushfire area. So we have something to build upon and consider in the future. It always seems impossible until it's done. Don't find fault, find a remedy. And I just want to finish off on something that Brother Joe said when he said, when you got your back against the wall, don't just talk about it, but get out there and actually do something. And I think that's what Tzu Chi Melbourne has done over the last 2 years. We had our back towards the wall. We weren't accepted at the start. The council didn't recognise us. The other charities weren't too sure about us. The recovery groups, even though they took down our names and everything, they didn't really say a lot. And we found out that our messages weren't being passed on. So we persevered, we travelled, we perspired, we worked hard, and eventually people realised that we were the real deal and that they were just going to help us out as much as they possibly could as well. So as Joe said, when you've got your back against the wall, don't just talk about it, get out there and actually do what you do and do it the best you possibly can. Thank you very much. That's my presentation for tonight.
Oh, wonderful. Thanks, Brother Wayne. It was very touching, and especially...
Brother Joe, how are you?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing. It's midnight over there in Melbourne,
Yes.
and thank you. You definitely don't look sleepy at all, and you look as energized as ever, sharing that story. All the stories from the beginning, how there was, distrust or there was not much trust, all the way to the end where everybody began to see us. And even though they do not know our way because they cannot pronounce our name and they have to call you Penguin, either way, but whatever it is, I think you could see that the path is open, the door is open, and you're invited in. But I like your last slide, the slide that you are having right now, which is consider the future, right? We always, the things that I talked about, remember what happened, don't forget what happened, right? And then living at the moment. It seems like we don't talk about the future that often, right? So we don't talk about that a whole lot. Master tell us to talk about, don't forget about the people, don't forget about that event, don't forget about what happened. And then carpe diem, right? Always remembering the cherish the moment, seize the moment. And then here you are talking about the future. What can we do in the future? Something to build upon. What are we building upon? Now that we are having this path open, what can we do more? Are we going to stick to the same thing that we're doing? Are we okay being called Penguin? Or maybe, okay, maybe that's fine. Maybe that's not what we are so, attached to. But what do we want to go from there, right? What do we want from Melbourne to continue, right? These are people, you spoke about, I think this particular person, Rex. Oh, Rex is a very heartwarming guy, caring for the stray animals, right? And now that they know us, now that they are part of the energy, energy force to build the good and helping, and also the bamboo bank and all of that, what do we go from there? And I think that's a very valid question to ask, and that's a very valid point to be making. Instead of just looking at what happened in the past, instead of just looking at what we can do, our back against the wall and just don't talk about it, do something about it. Good. Now, what do we do? What is our goal next? And I'm sure for Malaysia, for our brothers and sisters in in Malaysia, we have different goals too. I mean, it's ultimately the same goal, but how we achieve that is going to take through different routes. And so it will be different from Melbourne as well. As we all have the time differences, our path will be different, but our goal would ultimately be the same. Thank you so much. I wanted to, the first thing is to commend you on you being the nocturnal, not really sleeping, not feeling like you're sleepy at all. Second of all, thank you for bringing out the future aspect. Okay, so it's always one of very important thing to always be thinking about the future. And lastly, I think thank you for bringing a smile to all of our faces when you talk about penguin. I think it's very true. But if you look closely, penguins are not all that neat. I mean, they look cute and their feathers look from afar. They're really, really, like neat. But if you look closer, it's really not that neat. And I think what I think is why is Tzu Chi different? Is it because our uniform? Is it because of that they cannot pronounce our name? What sets us apart from others? There must be something more, right? What is that?
I suppose being a Westerner, and I mean, I'm the only Westerner at the Melbourne branch, and what we've done over the last 2 years is most probably more than what we've done over the last 15 or 20 years. And when I said about the future, I just don't want to lose this momentum, because we have really gone out there in the last, I mean, regrettably, we've had 2 really bad years of bushfires in Australia. And even though we only got to do 1 cash distribution this year for the Bairnsdale area, most of the case managers up in the Mallacoota area and all like that, they got in touch with us, which was really quite surprising. And normally it's us having to go out and work for them, but they were actually getting in touch with us saying, oh, look, we've heard all about Tzu Chi, and we saw your last presentation that you did up at Sarsfield. Are you still helping people out? And I said, we are always helping people out. We never stop. It's what our future is all about. It's looking after people and caring for people. And I think the difference between our charity and other charities here in Australia is that exactly what Tzu Chi is about, compassion. We use a compassionate approach, and we openly listen to people, whereas most of the other charities have a sort of like a set of protocols in place which are very strict and very rigid. We found that we're more open to discussion. Our freer nature allows the people to become more comfortable with us. And I think this is why even now, 2 years later, the residents up in Tonnenbrook and Bunyip still welcome us with open arms.
Okay, great. So don't lose that, because it's easy. Yeah, it's easy to lose that. You get more structure. Okay, not a bad thing, but it's just people change, right? So exactly. Keep that freedom, keep that livelihood, keep that energy and momentum, and try to make the best of it while helping yourself to build that structure as well. So that's the the juggling act that we have to always keep. So exactly right. So thanks so much, Brother Wayne. You're staying up. It's wonderful, and like you said, it's bad that we have to have this bushfire to really get us to that ground.
That's the
incredible
part. Yeah.
But we're there. So let's not lose that momentum, as you said. So thank you so much for your sharing.
The future's going forward, and we'll be there.
We'll be there.
Okay, Brother Joe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.